Okay, hi there. We are live, GM. This is the $1 Trade Show hosted by Groovy Market. I'm Diego, your host, and now we are joined by two special guests. So we have Yoshi by Fact Check, and we have Lucas from Cash. Hi, guys. Great to have you here.
Amazing. It's a pleasure being
Lovely to
here
be
as well.
here.
Amazing, amazing. So let's start with the intro. So please, Lucas and then Yoshi, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit how you got here into prediction markets?
Oh, that's a very long question, but I'll try to make it brief. However, so again, I'm Lucas. I'm the founder and CEO at Cash. My background has always been in information security. You could think of it as a hacker, as a white hat hacker. Information has always been obviously at the core of everything that I've done, everything that I've also seen other people do, whether it was for a value add to society or whether it was for the opposite purpose, right? So being able to also see what is happening in the market with AI, with social media, with information, with misinformation, it was really clear to us that the same way proof of work or proof of stake work extremely well for the blockchain consensus for objective computational transactions, let's say, in terms of social layer, in terms of people, there aren't many other mechanisms or protocols that do the exact same good purpose as prediction markets do on that social veracity layer, right? So it was very clear to me, even on a philosophical perspective, that this was absolutely a must have for society for every single type of market. So we went full into social native, permissionless, giving people a voice social media prediction markets, especially the long tail markets, and we decided to build Cash. So that should be a tiny bit about myself. I'll let Yoshi now begin.
Amazing. Yeah. How about you, Yoshi?
Awesome.
Tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about
awesome.
you and what
That
you're
that
doing
was
exactly.
a yeah, sorry, that was a really interesting background. I didn't know you were into information security. That's really cool. Yeah, so hi, my name's Yoshi. I'm the co-founder of FactCheck. FactCheck initially started as a fact-checking platform where we allowed users to create permissionless markets on various different subjects. For example, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? So they were structured like prediction markets in that they were binary, but the markets that we were going after were completely different. They were past and present facing markets that focused on issues that would not be able to get solved by prediction markets. And we saw some moderate success when we went live with that. But now we're working on something new in the prediction market space. We're building on top of Polymarket and Gauchi as well. And we hope to go live next week with the product. So I don't want to give away too much about the product just yet. Um, and I just want you guys to see it for itself once it's live. But yeah, that's my background. Before this, I used to work at a crypto hedge fund called 3POC Labs based out of Dubai. I was the head of research at 3POC Labs for about 2.5 years. And before that, I was a complete TradFi bro. I worked at a consumer VC fund and then I worked at an equity hedge fund, both based out of India, while also finishing my CFA. So yeah, I've been in crypto for a while now, and started building in prediction markets full time this year.
It's great to see how different backgrounds are kind of emerging. I mean, people with different backgrounds are coming into prediction markets and how this enriches the environment here. And with that in mind, I would like to ask you guys. I mean, mostly, what do you guys think that we can talk about prediction markets as a financial tool that people can use to leverage their opinions, their assets, or should prediction markets consider it most like a machine of truth, like a public good for society? What's your view on this?
That's a very. If you want, Yoshi can briefly begin, but feel free to add anything in the middle. But that's a very good question, right? Because implicitly you're stating that anything that is financial instrument is not really a public good, right? Which is, I wouldn't explicitly say it's one or the other. I would say, especially when a group of people start being coordinated enough, right? certain pattern emerges, the same way that whenever there is enough people that are convinced that there's a strategy behind, chaos emerges, right? So we are the very blurry lines of intersection of is there such a thing as collective intelligence, right? And can that be expressed through a financial vehicle, right? Such as such as a position within an outcome that then you can actually borrow and trade with, right? Even on secondary markets or derivatives of that opinion. And I am of the full conviction that indeed there is such a thing as collective intelligence, especially when people start putting their own liquidity. There is a very fine and interesting case that happens when you actually start having skin in the game. You start thinking, or you start filtering your own bias, and you start thinking about what your neighbor is going to say, right? What the whole world starts thinking. Why? Simply because the alignment, well, the incentive is aligned. You want to win. You want to prove not only to yourself and to others, depends on how social native you are, of course, or the protocol is, the fact that you're right, but also you want to definitely banking that, that sweet gain and so on. So that whole unbiasing process and being able to think outside of your own box, outside of your own echo chamber, what the result is going to be, that's definitely one of the elements that make it a public good, a collective intelligence good, right? But that's not I would say, the only element that I see in the game, right? There is also the fact of truly acknowledging that in the world there is such a thing as information asymmetry. What we used to call inside trading, inside information, or good intuition by years of experience, or simply groups of friends that are closer to those circles of information. Prediction markets is a platform that pseudonymously or anonymously or very publicly attributable to the individual enables those people to leverage their opinion as much as they want, their conviction as early or as late as they want, and as and as heavy or as light as they want, right? So I really see that as a financial instrument that is actually the vehicle through which people can have a voice, and a voice as high or as loud as their predictions are right. And when you start aligning a feedback loop with what actually happened, so we're not talking about a survey or about a poll or about what your friends think, but actually what happened, people for the first time actually could start rethinking the truth and actually becoming more aligned with reality, right? So overall, 100%, I think it's a public good through a financial vehicle. And I mean, we're already starting to see many derivatives of that instrument, right? So and more that we'll see in the next following years.
Okay. How about you, Yoshi? What's your take on this?
Yes, I mostly agree. I think prediction markets, I would call them kind of a new asset class. They're similar to futures. They're also similar to options in certain ways, but actually they're their own thing. And what I really like about prediction markets is that they have become very accurate at pricing truth. And I'm not saying it's like some kind of oracle that can just predict the future and we'll get all kinds of crazy answers from prediction markets. That's not what truth machine really means in today's context. It just means that the wisdom of the crowds is getting more and more accurate on prediction markets as you get closer to the resolution time period, such that before a market resolves, we will know up to 99% accuracy whether something is going to be true or not, which is still very, very useful, but not as crazy as it's made to sound in the media and stuff like that. But what I've seen in prediction markets is that the public good side of things, it really helps when the markets are well priced in politics or in macro markets, because those markets actually give useful information to people. So with the presidential elections, for example, news sources were reporting a wide variety of opinions, you could say, and it was completely biased based on whether the news source was left leaning or right leaning. But prediction markets were like the one source of truth in that moment, and it really proved to the world that prediction markets are better at pricing truth than any other media source out there. But in terms of stuff like sports markets, I wouldn't say prediction markets are a public good, right? Because sports markets are inherently a lot more volatile. There is an element of betting, and there's no way you can predict what's going to happen in the sports game just because of how, stuff can change in a second. Like if someone scores a last minute winner, the odds completely change, and stuff like that cannot be priced in. So I would say that prediction markets are a public good in certain sectors. In other sectors, they are probably just another means to speculate. So as a whole, they're probably not a public good, but in certain sectors, they are definitely public goods. But as a whole, they are definitely also the most accurate truth machine that we have so far, and they will continue getting more and more accurate. So yeah, I mean, it's clear to see why they are so interesting and so talked about these days because there's just so many different sectors that have come together to create prediction markets.
And you both, each one of you touched on great points that I would like to explore a little bit more. So Lucas, you mentioned that how prediction markets can become more. I mean, do you believe that prediction markets and having people with an edge, let's say insider traders or people with inside information, could make prediction markets more efficient than other kind of markets? I mean, do we want people with inside information to make these, let's say, this to inform these crowded knowledge better? What do you believe this?
Well, I mean, legally speaking, I will never say that people should do inside trading. It is illegal in many cases for many reasons. And hence, I'm not saying everybody that has that should definitely do this. But purely on the hypothetical front, on, should people with more knowledge, more information, even privately so or unfairly so, should they participate in prediction markets? And actually, my answer will be hell yeah, right? We need it is very different, right? What we hear on the news, on TV, on AI-driven misinformation news, right? It is very different what that is versus what many people believe because they live in those closed circles, right? And most importantly, they place their own stake, right? So in a way, it is a proof of stake of what I'm saying because I may lose it all, right? So as a public good, I really believe there must be a platform, and there is prediction markets through which you can actually get, these leaking information of the truth that starts in one spot and then carries over to the entire world, right? So I do believe people should have the right to know information as fast as they can and the right source of information. And much of information should not be gatekept. Of course, there, out of national security, defense, things should not be made public. But everything that concerns prediction markets within a reasonable framework and way of thinking, it is an extremely good point to an opportunity and an empowering kind of perspective to give to the people, right? So full on, my answer would be yes on that front.
Okay, so let me follow up with you, Yoshi, on that, and also ask you after that, what's your idea about the relationship between media and prediction markets? Do you think that prediction markets will be the next way of media, or they complement each other?
So to answer the first question, whether prediction markets enable insider trading or whether insider trading is, it's okay on prediction markets. I think ethically, obviously I'm against insider trading because it's someone who has an unfair advantage, taking advantage of a inefficient market and basically making the market efficient while also giving himself a profit. But you could also say that there's different types of insider information. There's material information and there's non-material information. I think if someone really does in-depth research, speaks to the right people and basically finds this alpha and then profits from it, I think ethically and morally that's okay to do because the person has put in the work, so they deserve to get rewarded for it. But if it's just blatant insider trading where it's about whether a company is going to IPO on this date or not, and you work for the
Mm-hmm.
company and you know when they're going to IPO. Obviously, I'm against that, because that is just if like prediction markets are a game, that's basically cheating, because you already know the result, right? But having said that, insider trading does make prediction markets more efficient and makes them as efficient as they are today, because that insider information actually changes the odds. So it's like a double-edged sword, right? On
Mm-hmm.
one end, it's morally, it's not okay, but on the other end, it is making the market more efficient and giving other people signal that this is the new level of truth on this particular market. So real time, people are getting information a lot quicker about all kinds of subjects, a lot faster than they used to before there were prediction markets. So
Mm-hmm.
overall, there's no right answer. Is it good or is it bad? It's just it just is, right? People are going to do it
Mm-hmm.
because these are permissionless platforms. So it would be tough to limit it, and since you're not doxing these individuals, there's no way to give them any kind of punishment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say just accept it, and yeah, just
Let,
accept
let,
it
let-
for
Stay
what it
calm and
can,
is.
carry
can,
on.
yeah, can we say that okay, they can make a prediction markets more efficient, but also then can be considered cheating? But it is what it is. I mean, is this something that is out of our control? I mean, on prediction markets, considering okay, whoever is building a way of prediction market, is there a way to limit this kind of behavior from users?
That's a very good
Yeah,
question,
I
actually.
mean, I feel like currently there's no real solution out there to this, but as a market participant, if you are trading on a market, you should know that, yeah, I can get front run, or I can get completely just wrecked by an insider trading against me. That's a risk that you should know about and you should be willing to
Mm-hmm.
take. And it's also
Mm-hmm.
depends on what the market is, right? There are certain markets where there's no way an insider could have any information, like a Bitcoin price prediction market.
Yeah.
No one can possibly know what the price is going to be in like the next 10 minutes. Like, unless it's like a giga whale who's just like completely skewing the order book, they could. But in that case, they're probably not going to make as much money in the prediction market just because of the amount of liquidity in prediction markets currently.
I
So
mean,
sports markets,
unless
price
you're
prediction
close,
markets,
uh, unless you're close to Sailor
yeah.
and you get first information that he's going to dump on us, right?
Yeah, but then if you knew that there are markets where you can go and trade on whether MicroStrategy is going to buy
Sure.
Bitcoin this week or not, right? There's a lot more
Mm-hmm.
markets out there that would be a lot easier to manipulate and be profitable on. So I think it comes down more to the market itself as compared to who the participants in these markets are. If you create a market which is automatically biased and is automatically incentivizing people to get insider information, then that's on the market creator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm
Mm-hmm.
creating a market about whether my MicroStrategy is going to buy, there's automatically incentives for someone who's an insider to trade this market.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Perfect. And with this in mind, I mean, considering that prediction markets can be as efficient, I mean, even more efficient than traditional markets, can we believe that in the near future prediction markets are going to be the next way of media, or are they collective, or they are different things? What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tiny bit like the blockchain, right? The blockchain didn't create a whole new internet. It added a veracity layer, right? A
Mhm.
verifiability layer. Um, and it's greatly limited by doing so. You cannot really have the same level of computation on the world computer, right? There are always these problems of scalability and things like this. So I think prediction markets would act, as I said before, in the proof of stake, proof of work comparison. I think it would act, it would not replace media, but it would just sit on top or right in between, be based on this media as a truth veracity layer, right? And that feedback loop will be the one that ultimately tells people to go to one side or another, or the trustworthiness of every single site. So I don't think it's in terms of replacement, because prediction markets by themselves, they have also their own weaknesses, such as Yoshi said just before, being able to manipulate the market by the market creation, right? There could be very aware and sneaky actors that indeed deal with these odds and deal with this, psychology, with this human psychology. But overall, on things that are already established, it would be similar to the blockchain, a layer on top that actually verifies and is able to get that trustless and distributed knowledge from people. So media will continue being media, but however, they will have to acknowledge, if not fully embed, prediction markets on their sites. And I'm fully convinced this is actually what's going to happen. In fact, Cashbot is already in the middle of those negotiations to add this layer at the top. So this is where we see, and these companies as well, the media field going.
Amazing. And how about you, Yoshi? What's your take on that? Because it has
Yeah,
to do with what FedCheck is doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It has to do with what we were doing. We're not building in that direction anymore. But as to the question, I definitely agree that prediction markets will become a verification layer for all kinds of news sources. But it's not going to replace news. I don't think prediction markets are geared towards that, because news sources in general, they thrive on sensationalism, they thrive on selling stories. That's how they make money, and capturing attention is a lot easier for a news source because of just the headlines that they can put out. A prediction market by definition will be as market neutral as possible. So it's possible that prediction market, the markets out there are not going to appeal to anyone's extreme emotions. It's just very neutral. So they might not sell as a news source, but as a verification layer, which, all news sources kind of plug into, and you can measure how biased the news source is based on like the underlying prediction market for that particular news. I think it would be a lot more useful in that context. So I don't see prediction markets replacing media. I see them accentuating media. And yeah, I completely agree with Lucas on that one.
Okay,
Agreed.
I agree with both of you guys, because I've been seeing people on Twitter saying that okay, news are going to be done in the near future, but that's not the case at all.
Just
As
like
you guys
Elon
said, I
Musk,
mean,
right? Saying, don't
totally different
trust.
beast.
Exactly. It's like Elon Musk saying, don't trust Strat Media, trust my privately held company. Well,
Exactly.
it should be a
Same
part of
point.
both, but always the same veracity layer that is on the house, right? And the community is the house. Yeah.
And participation. And talking about participation, we've seen a huge growth on people talking about prediction markets lately. We've seen the interest is growing. Even if you go to Google Trends, people are searching way more about prediction markets than ever. And we are seeing lots of projects building on top of prediction markets, new infrastructure. So I would like to hear from you guys. Do you believe that this is a super cycle, or is it too early to talk about a super cycle? It's just the beginning, or something that is still going to evolve?
Do you want me to go first, Yoshi?
No, actually, I don't mind going first, because I actually tweeted this
As you
exact
prefer.
thing. It
Cool.
was a Google search trend that was up and to the right, and my caption was prediction market super cycle. But to be very honest, I mean, the word super cycle is just like it's a word. It doesn't necessarily mean that prediction markets are just gonna go exponential for the next 10 years. I think what's actually going to happen is that there will be a bunch of catalysts that will lead to step changes in prediction market volumes. So the election in 2024 was one example of that, and we will have a few more of these triggers, so to speak, where prediction markets will come back into the limelight in a very big way. So, what happened with the elections, it was like a one-off event where prediction markets really exploded. Since then, volumes have kind of plateaued, but they found a new floor, so to speak, where they're still doing, millions in volume every month, whereas before the elections, it was several hundred thousand. I think in the, maybe end of this year, there's midterm elections. There could be some external event which no one sees coming, where prediction markets might have seen it before anyone else. So prediction market is set up to have lots of different triggers to bring back attention to them. But I don't think it's going to be your typical super cycle where it's just constantly going up. I think there'll be periods where there's crazy usage and crazy volumes, but then they'll plateau out, and then there'll be a new trigger to take it that next step up. So because it's early days, I think it's going to be volatile, but the trend is definitely up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I equally share that opinion, especially what a super cycle is, right? I see way more people talking about it than actually using prediction markets, and that's good.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's good, but that's a first step, right? That's a good first step. I think we're far, far actually way before the actual peak happens, and from that peak, it would be steady growth, right? You also mentioned something that it is actually is based on the core of our business as well. That whole right now is volatile, is discrete participation, right? It is based on one-off events, but truth is not based on one-off events. Truth is every day, is reality, right? It's a continuous thing where people build a habit of being more aligned with the truth, right? And again, not to say that Cash is exactly pursuing that, right? To be right in the habit of people, right? Right in the habit of every day there is something happening where there's blurry lines that before the volume was of billions used to go to meme coins. Now it can actually go to the truth whilst people can have fun whilst building that habit, right? So it is actually that I would say we're actually in a super cycle. The day it is truly embedded in people's habits, it is something that people think of every day, reasonably so, and within, of course, healthy limits and healthy frames. And we're actually speaking the truth and thinking of the truth and reasoning through what is an appropriate way of thinking about current events, unbiased from hype, unbiased from what people with vested interest in the darkness, might be having. And that would be actually where the super cycle reaches. So in other words, there is no better time to get in, to jump in, and to start building in prediction markets if you're truly innovating there, instead of as Warren Buffett would say, swimming naked in the beach, right? As we may see sometimes protocols doing.
And just to illustrate is something that you guys mentioned here. So I've been going to events the last 6 months, and when I talk to people about prediction markets, most of them don't even know what I'm talking about. When I ask them about, have you ever heard about Polymarket? Oh, okay, they know about Polymarket. And when I ask if they ever use a Polymarket, 90% never. So I mean, it shows how early we are in this. So I think that super cycle, I mean, whatever it means, we are not there. I compare what we are seeing now with where we were with ICOs back in the day compared to the launch pads infrastructure that we have nowadays. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built yet, and I would like to shift gears for a more technical question right now. I mean, one of the biggest problems with prediction markets, and I mean, if we're thinking about prediction markets as an built with having decentralization in mind, I mean, which is one of the most from crypto. So thinking about user generated prediction markets, which we are building at Groovy, the biggest challenge for anyone who's doing that is the initial liquidity for prediction markets. And I know you both guys have different takes on how to solve this liquidity problem. So I would like to hear from you. I mean, is this liquidity the biggest problem or the biggest challenge with prediction markets? And also, how do we solve this liquidity problem with prediction markets?
That's the ever returning recurring question in prediction markets, but very good nonetheless. Um, on on as per how it works, simply saying, is a blockchain with very limited computational power to do proof of work, or with very limited stake from actually holders, is this going to be safe? Is this going to be a good use and a good public good? Well, definitely not, right? So indeed, liquidity is a big issue, and it's one of the biggest kind of trust factors that people should take into consideration, of course, when building it. We saw very clearly how important it is to truly Either you're one of the biggest players in the market where you have already well-established hedge funds, algo trading funds, different types of financial shops as well that have vested interest in market making, right? And you can actually go by with with these already pre-made partnerships because you already own that distribution and that brand awareness. Or if you want to jump into actually gaps and intersections where there's a lot of value, but there are very few protocols actually going to them because of this very specific issue, right? These long tail markets, very short term markets. Now liquidity becomes a real issue, right? Because it's way more difficult, even especially if you do permissionless markets, right? How are you going to convince a liquidity provider to be on call, ad hoc, on demand, whenever a user, random user, arbitrary background creates a new market, right? With very little time to do research before, in which tranches, in the case of a club, right? A central limit order book or a CPAM, where you need a very stable and high amount of A and B tokens, right? For there to be minimum slippage, minimum loss, and liquidity providers to make a little profit, right? Impossible. It is actually impossible. So unless you truly re-engineer, you go back to AAM school or whatever you may be closest to, and you create a good, sound, and correct market maker that adapts to these facts, I really find it's going to be a very big challenge to reach that public, especially to offer that user experience, saying that you're a prediction market seeking the truth with this liquidity problem. So unless you innovate on that front, it's going to be almost impossible, I would say, to get outside of the shadow of Polymarket or Kalshi, who've done an amazing job in PMF right in these markets.
Amazing. What's your take, Yoshi? Because you have your opinion to it, by the way, is about potential ways to solve liquidity.
Yeah. So, I mean, first we need to define the problem. The problem with providing liquidity to prediction markets is that one of the two sides is going to go to zero, right? So as a market maker, I know that no matter how well I provide liquidity, there is always that tail risk that the liquidity I'm providing, that inventory is just going to go to zero, right? So if I'm holding yes and the market goes to zero, I lose all my inventory and I make nothing, right? But if I'm like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum market maker or any other asset, the asset is unlikely to just go to zero. It might drop, but I can always get back some of my inventory for like a limited drawdown. It's not going to go to zero. So there's a few ways you can solve this issue of, this inventory risk, which is like the main looming risk for all prediction market makers. One is you get market makers who are better at pricing risk. So options and futures market makers, for example, they are a lot more used to, a lot higher volatility. They have better pricing models. They need to count for that tail risk, especially options market makers of the inventory going to zero, because options, as you know, like if, an option is not in the money, your premium basically just goes away and whatever you put in goes to zero. So prediction markets, I would say, are pretty similar to options in that aspect. So onboarding more market makers who have experience pricing this risk is one of the solutions I can think of, probably the most immediate solution. I wouldn't say it's like the way Lucas was talking about completely re-engineering the whole system from the ground up. This is more to solve the problem today. But in the longer term future, there are a bunch of solutions that I've thought of how you can solve this. One is obviously bonding curves. Basically bootstrap. I mean, I don't know exactly how it's going to work. It's just an idea, but you bootstrap liquidity for a prediction market using bonding curves. And once it hits that threshold, you can then graduate it to an EMM or to an order book. The exact details of how that would work is what people need to figure out. I mean, that's the alpha. If you figure it out, then good for you.
Actually, Yoshi, let's talk, because that's exactly what we do. So nice. Very good point, I have to say, because I totally agree with that one. And indeed, that's one of the solutions. It's not the only one, but it's the best one we have. The paper will be published, again, as a public good real soon at one of the most reputable academic venues. So I'll keep you posted, but before then we can
Definitely
privately talk a bit alpha.
Yeah,
if there
looking forward to it. I will DM you right after this stream.
if
Let's
there
do it.
anything that you can share with us about how do you solve this bonding curve? I mean, how can you innovate in this bonding curve, considering that? So if you compare to Pump.Fun model, which is one token that is going to be launched, and with prediction markets we have two sides. Are people going to provide liquidity on both sides? On they can have this directional trade and just provide liquidity to only one of the tokens? Anything that you could share
Exactly.
before?
So the only alpha that I can share is the problems that we solve, not how we solve them right now. But again, the paper will be a public good. So everybody could copy and do more public good things, hopefully building on cash. That's kind of the point of it. But the problems that we solve are, and the biggest problems when using, or for which a bonding curve AMM is the best way, is exactly some of the elements that you mentioned. You start with literally zero USDC or whatever stable coin or even more volatile asset you'd like to use, right? So that's already a problem. How can you create a smooth and stable price discovery when from 0 to 1, that's already a huge slippage, right? I mean, some models that might even be up to infinity, right? To the AMM constant product, right? Curve, it would be right in the extremes, right? Or how do you ensure, we were talking about, well, in this case, we're talking about social dynamics. People have inherited bias to human nature, the social herd problem, right? If I follow a KOL, that KOL is generally better connected. You're going to trust it implicitly. You may trust it implicitly even more than your own opinion. And if they put a bunch of money into yes tokens, let's say, for example, into the yes outcome, then there is going to be a bunch of people, like a social herd, just investing in the same leg of the market, right? So how do you even make sure that the no also has a chance to live and not at 0.01% likelihood, right? Also, how do you ensure that price equals probability, right? Instead of being a very weird derivative, right? Even on Polymarket, right? When you try to make a profit, is price doesn't always correspond to probability, right? And that goes back to the core math of the model, right? In this case, it's like a hybrid between a club and an AMM. Second problem as well is we are talking about the truth, right? Information asymmetry. It's not fair for people that wait until the very end of the market to bet on the right outcome, right? As opposed to early bettors, right? Because again, we're in the game of information asymmetry. So the sooner you are, the higher risk you're taking. Or in the case of, again, hypothetical inside trading, which we may as well refer to in this call as you simply have better intuition through experience, right? Then you must be incentivized to do that as early as possible so that others can actually benefit as well, right? So for the first time, actually a bit of inside information in a legal way, of course, is benefiting other people if you do that. Of course, everything you see is a bit laughing, but of course within a legal context of these things, and in a context that it is really a benefit for society and hence for companies as well. So that's also another issue, right? To solve in these markets, right? For the mathematical invariance to be redeemable at either 1 or 0, the price can never go beyond 1 because then you have an immediate loss already. If it's at 1.2, even if you win, you have 20% loss already. So all these different mathematical invariants must be fully embedded in the curve and could span from 2 outcomes to 3, 4, 5, 6 different outcomes, right? And everything being adaptive to social dynamics and the time the market is live, right? So all these things is what constitute a market maker of the truth, where prices don't go out of whack during price discovery. And what Yoshi said is actually one of the best solutions our team spent with the brightest minds at UCL, MIT, our own knowledge as well, and experience in hedge funds to actually work this out. And hopefully more people would start adopting the same.
Amazing. I'm really excited to read this paper. When is it coming out?
In about 2 months. The product will be out sooner than the paper.
Okay.
It's simply because the financial venues have like a very specific dates, and it has to be peer reviewed. It's already received green flag, the green light for all of this. So yeah, looking forward
Amazing.
to sharing it publicly soon.
Amazing. Hopefully in a couple of months, so we are going to see a solution for this liquidity problem. Amazing.
100%, 100%.
Yeah, amazing. And let me ask
I
you.
mean, I don't want to like give away any alpha, but I mean, I'm just guessing out here how you guys would solve it. I would assume, so with a regular bonding curve, if you're just pricing one asset, you're basically linking the supply of that asset to the price itself. So the price is like a function of the supply. But in the case of prediction markets, obviously you would have to have, minimum two outcomes, and that would mean minimum two outcome tokens. So to solve the issue, you would have to link the price with the supply of both the different tokens under one formula. So if I had to guess, it would be like a sum of squares formula with like a square root, which can then be scaled to multiple outcomes with a cube root or a quadratic root or whatever. Because I had also like tinkered with the idea myself. I didn't go too in depth with it because I just realized my brain is not big enough to do that. But yeah.
Well, you're hired. if you ever wanna collab, you're hired.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm already happy.
At least on the right track.
I'm already happy if we can make this. I mean, if we can bring you guys together and bring a better solution to what we have right now for liquidity. Amazing. I'm really glad to put you guys.
That's
together.
the point of this space.
Yes, I mean this is what I told you guys. I mean, this is what we are going to we are aiming to do. I mean, it's making connections in this space and giving more awareness of what people are building here. And talking about what's been built, I would like to finish with a last question here about where you guys see prediction markets in from 2 to 5 years. What do you guys expect to see?
To quickly go on my own predictions, I think we will see a few elements that we already mentioned. We will see certain protocols. We'll definitely see a myriad of different protocols, no pun intended, are really giving and offering and enabling prediction markets on the market. So there will be more than one. That's already fundamental to know, right? As I do not think there will be the incumbents that take all the volume. There are many reasons to that, more than happy in the DMs to justify that. But long story short, there is such a thing as localized events where there is a huge volume, but these incumbents cannot move fast enough. That's one of many reasons. Second thing is we will see as well more peer-to-peer prediction markets. And by peer-to-peer, I don't simply mean your group of friends and set it up and providing the platform to do so, but it's more on the liquidity enabling side, right? Enabling side, on the fact of being able to use completely custom new ways to market make that are aligned with the truth and are aligned with social dynamics. And final point as well, we will see a lot of smaller protocols that are heading in the right direction to be acquired by Kalshi or Polymarket at the very, very beginning, even before they have a chance to shine in the world. Again, that is strategic, and I would do the exact same thing if I were Polymarket or Kalshi. We will see a bunch of talent as well jumping into these companies. Again, strategic move from these companies. We will see about 70% of protocols truly showcasing that they were indeed swimming naked in this hype and wave of prediction markets. And then we will see, hopefully, a bunch of original, discrete, and by discrete, I don't mean quiet, I mean truly they have unique value propositions, truly succeeding out there in the gaps that may or may not be even larger than Polymarket and the incumbents, right? Truly succeeding in the field. So that's how I see probably more in the 3 to 5 year range.
How about you, Yoshi?
So, I mean, if you're asking about predictions about prediction markets, it's pretty tough actually. But what I'm hopeful for in the future is I'm actually hopeful for better consumer experiences. and like Lucas said, some more localized markets, because the world is a big place, but currently, if you look at prediction markets, they're obviously completely focused on the US, or mostly focused on the US. But there's so many more issues going around in the world that we just have no idea about. So many different micro markets all over the world, Southeast Asia, South America, Africa, just huge markets which seem underserved right now. So I think prediction markets will expand to cover, a much broader range of markets and topics. And through this, I also wrote a piece about prediction market UI. I think we're going to see a lot more specialization coming soon in UI, where we will have front ends either built on Polymarket and Kalshi, or people building their own prediction markets, which will be catered towards a particular sector. So, for example, a sports prediction market exclusively. Already seeing a few of these pop up. Politics, news, media, pop culture. I think we're going to see a lot more specialization, and if Polymarket and Kalshi play their cards right, they could end up becoming that liquidity layer for all of these different markets. But it could also be, new companies coming in and taking away market share from them. So I have no idea. I do expect that to be like a speculative bubble at some point, especially when you start seeing lots of tokens going live. That would mean we're close to some kind of bubble forming, similar to the AI agents meta in November of last year. But I'm hopeful that that won't happen, because I'm not seeing too many projects launching tokens the same way it was with AI agents. It seems like the builders in the prediction market space are a lot more serious. They're here for the long run. They're not just laughing about some bullshit agent platform they built. It's actually real, and it's pretty easy to tell whether someone is talking, bullshit, or whether they're actually serious. So yeah, overall, I'm more bullish on prediction markets than I've ever been on any sector in crypto in the past. So yeah, I think the next 5 years things are going to drastically change, and there's no way to predict how prediction markets are going to change really.
Same here, but the future looks bright for prediction markets. I want to say thanks, guys. It has been great having you guys here. I mean, amazing knowledge you both shared. Please let us know, for whoever is listening, how they can follow you, follow your work, and how they can follow the projects you guys are building.
Yeah, happy to. So again, I'm Lucas Martin Calderon, LMC Security on Twitter, on Discord, on Telegram. I kind of unify them all. You can also find me building at cash.bot with K. So hopefully I'll see you around. If you have as well a very concrete expertise, whether it's technical or go-to-market, do indeed reach out to me. We just are about to close a round with the top 5 tier VCs in crypto. So the future is also very bright, as they said, for us as well. So do reach out.
Cool.
Awesome, yeah, and same goes for me. I'm Yoshi on Twitter. You might have seen me around writing like a maniac, recently. You can follow me. It's called Fact Check One Turn, like intern but with a one. Or you can follow my company account called factcheck.fun, which we are going to rebrand very soon to something else. But yeah, you can still follow us and join our Telegram. And yeah, my DM's are always open. I might take some time to reply, but I will eventually reply to you.
Amazing, guys. Once again, thanks a lot for being here to join me for this conversation. And if you are listening to us, if you don't follow Groovy yet, make sure to follow us. We are doing these live streams from Monday to Thursday every week, having the brightest minds on the space here. And make sure to claim your username at groovy.market. Thanks, guys. Have an amazing day. Great conversation.
You too.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.